Introduce yourself briefly so the audience can get to know you.
Hello, I'm Jamaica Anderson. I am the writer-director for Unspoken. I'm Jamaica-born, lived between both cities, New York and Jamaica, and I'm happy to see you all there.
My name is Lou Childs. I'm one of the co-executive producers of Mantuano. Thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. Thank you, Conch Shell, for having us. Mantuano basically a film that we finished creating 2019. We also debuted in the around that time, and since then we've been screening it all over. So coming down, and of course we'll hear this question.
How can Caribbean filmmakers pool their resources, their ideas, their contacts, their funding, I guess, and all in a way to make it a more productive and cohesive unit of Caribbean films being produced more, on a regular basis, and in a kind of a quality that everybody would see as being productive.
It's every filmmaker's pain, which is finance, be Caribbean, American, wherever you are. For the Caribbean stories, it's a little bit more challenging, just simply because who generally funds films, we have to also engage them. You get money from a financier if they fall in love with your project. So how do we mobilize our Caribbean community to have them be just as invested in our stories, so we don't have to always look at the resources that are not necessarily connected to us? So that is, I think, our greatest challenge. We haven't solved it, but we're hoping film festivals will continue to open the door, and do our best to try and invite people to come in and use that as a way to show what we're capable of doing and telling. But right now, I could say looking at Jamaica and even Trinidad, and I know Barbados just also launched a Caribbean film market. So it's these markets that you're looking at that the government hopefully can create grant opportunities for filmmakers to apply for. And with this, at the end of the day, filmmaking is still a business. And as long as we can prove that someone can make their money back, and we're given that opportunity, then I think we'll get more investors to follow along with us.
So for me, I would say just kind of building on the diaspora audiences around the world first. Sometimes I think, I would say just as Caribbean filmmakers, but specifically we can focus too much on New York or Florida, some of Massachusetts. So I think top layer, we can get kind of stuck in some of the same kind of audiences. I think if you kind of dig down a little bit deeper, you'll find places where you can actually bring the films to and kind of create those audiences where people eventually will be able to kind of create the business opportunity where people aren't just focusing on just a few places where we would normally go, but going to a place like Iowa shows that the film would have the versatility, right? That's how people kind of determine how films are going to perform if they do well in places that don't find a lot of Asians or Caribbeans, et cetera. And then also globally as well too. I think we have to do a better job of reaching out to those audiences as well too. I think I mentioned there African Asian Museum in Indonesia, and they're looking for audiences, films where people can kind of show the other side of the continent and show how we live and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to build on that, which eventually will lead to business opportunities, but we just have to start somewhere. So
I love how you both shared the importance of finding people to support your work, right? Because the question that you asked earlier, Carl, about how do filmmakers come together to get funding, it's how does the community come together, right? Because it's a community that's showing up to the screening right now that could be your future financier, right? Your future funder, because ultimately indie films like this are looking for individuals to back them. and those individuals have a shared passion. So what if there's an individual out here who's a filmmaker who's like, never even thought about shooting in Jamaica or Haiti, right? What country, and other countries in the Caribbean, which countries in the Caribbean are more filmmaker friendly? And what makes a country filmmaker friendly? If there's someone out there that's thinking, I think I want to shoot somewhere in the Caribbean. Is there an answer to that?
It becomes a global answer, but specific to the Caribbean, you look for rebates, look for tax incentives, and you look for obviously cost and accessibility. Yes, there are a few that offer that. Right now, who's very competitive with it is Dominican Republic, Curacao, and Trinidad. Jamaica, not so much. We offer a rebate, but we don't have like a tax incentive. But at the end of the day, the things that will decide whether or not an investor will film in either island will be based on those incentives for the bigger investor, or if you're a smaller filmmaker, you are not so caught up in all of that because you've raised what you could raise and the space you want to film is exactly where you want to be. So it kind of comes, it depends on the story you want to tell and who is negating your money if you can't have control over where you want to tell your story.
What does that mean, negating your money?
Well, they might want certain returns and they might want to see the tax incentives be recouped in some shape or fashion. They want the rebate. So when the financier has that much say, then you're kind of finding yourself in a different space to suffice that.
Thank you.
Much like what was just said, tax credits are a big thing. So when you hear like for local government, when you hear New York State has kind of increased their tax incentives for filmmakers, part of that is what they're talking about in terms of them trying to attract more films or more commercials being shot in New York State, and the different states compete with each other to kind of see, who gives the best deal. But aside from that, also when you're shooting internationally, you want to make sure the film commission is actually active. You kind of need a responsive film commission, people who you can reach out to right away. If something should go wrong and something old in filmmaking. Lastly, you just want to find people who know locations well, because you need people to be able to scout properly, to scout a good location for whatever scene you're trying to shoot, as well as honestly, the incentives. That's where the money is essentially, because a lot of finance, I won't call finance greedy, but a lot of them, they want to make $1 million off their thousands. You have to kind of right size the expectations, but also know, the details in each incentive based locality.
Without too much information, what was the cost range of the films that you made?
So my entire cost around, I want to say $30,000 to $35,000, something like that. Obviously, we all kind of pulled our money together, and plus we had a kind of crowdfunding campaign, and we spent a lot of our money first. But over the 5 years, that money back, probably more. But we didn't go in thinking we were gonna make $1 million for the Asian film. We just kind of went with it and just kind of stayed with it. And I think, in terms of the risk return profile for film, I think you want to not give up on the film so much. Even though it's just year 5 without film, we're still able to find audiences and we're still trying to find ways to make money on the film. So with the streaming age now, nothing dies. So I don't see a reason why we should stop.
What I've spent to get the short made was over 20. I just don't remember the exact numbers anymore because that was 2018 or 17. And there are a lot of additional costs that come with it just to even get the feature made, which is a little bit that was the question, right? It's
And I want to add, so when it comes to producing, because you're a producer, is there a certain genre that you focus on in particular, or do you just do everything?
I do not do horror.
Do not do horror.
And although I shouldn't say that because I've just did a horror dramedy, but it wasn't really horror in my mind, although I should not say that, director might be offended. But I generally do drama. I've produced quite a bit of sci-fis, and I've done comedy. Haven't yet done action, and I haven't done crime. But horror is not my genre. Not interested. I want to sleep at night.
So for me, I just kind of choose whatever project comes across our desk that I think could maybe be good and potentially can make money. So right now we have Mantuano, which is a documentary, but we have like maybe 3 other films, 2 short films that are, like feel-good films, and then 1 that's about maternal health. So I won't say we usually try, but the projects that we have right now have some sort of social basis towards it, so we can be able to find different audiences. Actually, horror right now is actually big in the film industry, so because it's very cheap to make, and the potential to make money is huge.
I've been here 30-something years, and this is probably my second event like this that I've attended. So, boo to me. But I was just really surprised and excited to get the invite and come out. But my question is for the unspoken. Thank you, first of all, for telling the story of both women's voices, right? Because I feel like we saw both stories there. What inspired the story, first of all? And was it difficult?
What drew me to want to make that book into a film was upbringing, just knowing that there's a point in a young boy's life where it's a rite of passage. And when this book came into my hand, I was like, oh, now I can kind of understand a little better how these circumstances occur. But the way the book is structured is about the dynamic of the 3, but it's really the 2 women that spoke to me the most. And yes, I was so happy to hear that you recognize that it was the 2 stories that I was telling. I wanted to give voice to the wife because in her mind and her experience, she's let someone into her house and she feels betrayed by her husband and this woman that she can identify her own level of kindness with. I also wanted to look at the experience of the helper who is a victim of lack of choice or feeling compelled that these are the circumstances that she has to deal with. And I wanted to also reshape the way we women who are possibly the employers might miss the fact that they're not necessarily asking for these circumstances. They're not asking for their employer to come in their room. And I wanted to really reshape us seeing that it's not a welcoming experience. They're not necessarily going out to take your husband. So that was the intention with looking at both the betrayal of even the helper even feeling as if, why doesn't her employer know that this could be happening to her, and what is she doing for her? So it's a very intertwined conversation that I was looking at and hoping to raise and to have us all just look at the role we play or don't see and create this conversation.
With technology, the way it is today, so advanced and so forth, but it's not as hard or difficult or expensive to make a film back in the day, despite reading all those books. Do you find it easier to make a film today? And do you plan to do any kind of work on the historical aspect of Haiti, what is suffering, what is been through, what is going through, and what it would take to get Haiti out of the clutches of what we were seeing. Do you plan to do any of those kind of things?
Not particularly, but let me just say, because there's so many filmmakers from Haiti that can kind of tell the story better than I can. My mother's from Haiti, but I was born here, so I didn't go. So I think, I know the history to a certain degree, but I think the history is so vast, it would take more than one filmmaker to tell it. So for example, there are like women that were involved in the revolution whose stories haven't really been told as they should, as well as they should. I think that would be a few different movies. I think talking about the historical debt that France and Haiti have, Haiti paid back to France for slavery, that would be a movie in itself. I think talking about Dessalines and all of that, and kind of lead up to revolution. So there are a lot of different movies, I guess, that would need to be told to kind of give credence to the breadth of the history of Haiti. But I think there are a lot of different stories throughout the Caribbean in regards to the historical aspect that should be told. There were 3 women from St. Croix that freed the entire Virgin Islands from the Dutch. I believe that's a story worth being told. Queen Anne in Jamaica, that's a story worth being told. So there are a lot of our history, as much as I would like to tell all of them, I think it'd be impossible for me to do that. But I think as long as we start having those conversations about the different, aspects of our shared histories regarding the Caribbean and Africa worldwide, I think, it's a start to kind of get those stories out there.
I wanted to just add to part A of the question, which was, with all these digital devices, how easy is it to tell a film? Comes in 2 caveats or 3. Sometimes the quality of the film. So you could make a film and it can only be YouTube friendly, but it can never play here because you did it on the phone. There's that lovely myth that we have phones now, so anybody can make a movie, but honestly, it takes a lot of people to make a movie. And in truth and fact, as a documentarian, they kind of move smallest impact, and they could take a longer time to get their stories told as they're doing the research. And then there's another path where they can shot hundreds of hours, and then they find the editor that's going to go through all of this and find the story that's really in all these interviews. And then you have the narrative space, and that's a bigger wheel. And even with the documentary, and I don't believe it's completely free either, it's not just them on the camera, they probably have to pay the people that they're filming, and they also have to pay for just to get where they're going to tell the story. And then when you come on the flip side, even though if I might have this small little phone, I need good sound, I'm gonna need some actors, I gotta pay them, because I can't always be trying to do everything for free with them, because they too need to get paid. Not everybody wants to get paid. You have sound, you have costume, you have hair and makeup, you have talent, you have the DP, you have the DP pull focus, you have the person that's helping with the slates, you have the production, the producer, the PA, you're feeding people, you have to purchase. It's such a big wheel that I can appreciate the 30-second video, but I would love for the industry to stop acting like it's that simple just because I have a digital device. It takes a lot of people to make a movie. That's why those credits are long, and that's why it's important to sit and watch all of it.
We have one more question, but I want to add another point in response to your question, sir. You said something really important, Lou. You didn't know something about Haitian history until you saw a video on YouTube, right? And so the significance of Conch Shell International Film Festival and all the other film festivals that focus on the Caribbean story is that we're saying we recognize we have amazing novels out there and amazing nonfiction historical accounts, but who's telling our story in film and theater? We need to do that because people are not trying to read those books. They want to see the play, they want to see the movie. So let's come together as a community to support that transition from book to movie, from history to movie. And that takes the community to say yes to it and to back it. And I know we only have 3 minutes left, but this amazing audience member wants to ask one question.
When it comes to filming internationally, from a producer standpoint, what challenges have you guys ran into when doing that? And as someone who has never filmed a project outside of the country, do you have any pieces of advice that you can share to me?
Shooting internationally, the challenges, it's the same challenge here, so to speak, but the biggest challenge is making sure if your intention is to crew up in the location, is to have a good line producer that's actually there that can assist you. But it's the same challenges you would have here, where you still need that one person that can help to bring everybody together. So your camera team is going to have their first people, and each department will have their first preference. But you hope your line producer that you should try and get that's of that country can help bring those pieces together. But you might be hearing that she's Nigerian. So, you might feel like you have a friend that you've met in the industry already that lives here, and you both have collaborated, and she could be a costume designer. So then she says, I want to join you. Then she's a part of that production, and you're just kind of taking in that other cost of flying her over, etc. But you are hoping that your line producer can pull certain pieces together. You might have followed the DP here, and you don't know the DP over there, and now you want to bring that DP. So the logistics all vary, just depending on who you like to work with and who you're open to work with. But your key person is someone on the ground in that location. It's a line producer that can bring together your crew, which is a job they do no matter where they are. And some of them can do it from here too. You're supposed to be resourceful as a producer, so that would be what you're looking for, someone that's very resourceful.
Yeah, I would kind of second that with just the importance of shooting outside the country is mostly going to be equipment. I know with Haiti, there wasn't a lot of camera stores and stuff like that, so you have to kind of find people who know where to go and kind of get you a good price. Because if you're coming from here, sometimes you get the American tax, which, okay. So you kind of want to work with people that kind of know the area, know the terrain, and be communicative as much as possible, be transparent as much as possible. Because no one wants to feel like they're getting played, but if you're gonna work in partnership with them, work in partnership. If you're gonna just be paying them to just do a job, and make that clear as well too, because people can kind of start thinking they're doing much more than the job calls for. And if you're not communicating properly, the relationship can start getting bad before the project kind of meets where it's supposed to go. So.
I want to thank the entire team here for welcoming us, and I want to thank you all for being here. And keep the word out about Caribbean film. There's a lot of organizations focusing on us. We've got to come together. We got to keep on supporting all the organizations. I'm not going to be selfish and just tell you to support us, but go ahead and support Conch Shell Productions. We're a nonprofit organization, and you can just find our email address and learn more about us, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.